Why education is vital, and why subsistence hunting and gathering still remains of importance to Alaska Natives. For Anthropology F242, today's date is April 24, 2015. For my paper, I focused on the Yupik Eskimo people of the southwestern region of Alaska. I chose this particular place because this is where I grew up. I will discuss how the living conditions once were in the past as to how people live today, why education plays a very important role to the ever-changing lives of those who live in the rural villages, and I will also explain why subsistence hunting and gathering still remains of importance to many of the Alaska Natives. This presentation should not be reflective and does not apply to all the Native people of Alaska who reside in the rural villages, as these are my own personal interpretations through my own personal experiences. In our history, the Yupik people of this region lived in sod houses. The families would move about where they resided based on the seasonal calendar for hunting, fishing, and gathering. Everything that they used were made from the land. Skin kayaks made by the men were used for subsistence hunting, and grass baskets woven together, made by the women, were used for subsistence gathering. The men were the hunters of the big game, while the women were the gatherers and the ones to process the catch. Families were able to subsistence hunt and gather as they needed. Like the indigenous people from the rest of the United States, Alaska Natives lived freely on the land without any regulations from the state or federal law. After contact with the Westerners, Native people in Alaska, as the rest of the indigenous people in the United States, have had to face lifestyle changes. One of the first group of people that the Yupik Eskimos of this region were in contact with were the missionaries. The missionaries viewed the natives as savages. Their cultural beliefs and values were unaccepted. The missionaries felt that the natives' cultural practices were evil. This is when the Yupik people lives changed to a more Western lifestyle. Today, Native people who live in rural villages live a more modern lifestyle, and the use of modern technology is making way of significant change. Unlike the people in the past who moved about based on the seasonal calendar, the Native people who live in the rural villages of Alaska now live permanently in homes. Unlike the skin kayak that was once used in the past, families now travel by boat to subsistence hunt, and unlike the woven grass basket that the women used, backpacks are used instead to subsistence gather. The men are the primary hunters, and the women are the primary gatherers as well, which is still something that is still the same. But today, Natives' ability to engage in subsistence activities are regulated by the state and federal law. Over the years, the natives of Alaska have been fighting for the ability to engage in subsistence activities from non-natives. You can see on my screen the pictures that I've included. There's a house right there, and then a tent that they use when they go out camping. There's my father's boat, and then a basket that was made, I think, with plastic materials that my mother made. Alright, so when the state of Alaska was bought by the United States from Russia, the Alaska Natives were not taken into consideration. Not until the Alaska Natives spoke up about their cultural beliefs were they heard. The Coolering, Urban Alaska Native Women, and the Subsistence Debate by Molly Lee, 2002, discusses the issue, detailing the legal and political events with a direct bearing on rural residents, specifically how it affected those who live in the southwestern region. Lee discusses the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act of 1971, the State Subsistence Act of 1978, the Alaska National Interest Land Conservation Act of 1980, and McDowell versus the State of Alaska in 1989, Lee 2002. Considering subsistence activities, I believe that many of these legal and political events stirred confusion, and still do, to many of the Alaska Native people who view subsistence activities as a way of life. Today, Native people are not only eating their native foods, but they are also including the Western diet as well. In the village of Chifornik, freight for groceries and materials are brought into the village through airplanes year-round, and also by the barges, which can only come during the summer months. Because this is the way in which materials are brought to Chifornik, things tend to be expensive. Groceries and materials prices are sky high, some double and even triple in prices compared to the city of Anchorage, Alaska. This is why subsistence activities are still very important as a means of survival. Subsistence foods serve as a part of a nutritional food source. Modern technology is making way of significant change, but the ability to acquire such things requires money, which is why education is so important. Education is important in order to get a job, financial income that is vital to the natives who live in the rural villages. Those who live in the Yukon-Kuskokwim regional area face a challenge as well. The purchase of gas and materials for subsistence activities is expensive. The Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta is rich in subsistence resources, which explains the cultural persistence of indigenous groups. The area is, however, poor in terms of formal employment. There are few jobs except those provided by village schools and administrative offices. Cash is critical for a subsistence way of life, because people needed to purchase gas and equipment to go out on the land. West 2009. Education is especially vital to many of the natives in the Yukon-Kuskokwim regional area. Because of the lack of jobs, those who have graduated from high school and also have post-secondary education have a better chance of getting hired. Otherwise, if one wished to move out to the bigger cities such as Anchorage, they can also have a better chance of finding employment as well if they graduated. Throughout the years, many of the natives have had to endure many challenges from the federal and state laws and regulations, and also non-natives over the issue of being able to harvest subsistence foods. Along with this issue, living conditions in the villages have also changed, whereas the use of modern tools such as boats that require gasoline and also guns and ammunition have become widely used. Over the years, with living conditions changing over time, subsistence hunting and gathering now requires families to require some sort of income. With many changes and challenges that the Alaska Native people face today, subsistence hunting and gathering has become a means of survival and has also become a means of financial income as well. With Native families who live in the rural villages, the importance of protecting the ability to subsistence hunt and gather is vital to many of the families. But without the knowledge of understanding the state and federal laws and regulations, which abide the indigenous people of Alaska, the natives will not know how to fight back for what they believe in. Thank you.